Welcome to Causing the Effect, a podcast focused on the exploration of your mind, body, and spirit.
My man, Joel Green, sweet but not sour, a lot of psychological power. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing amazing, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. Now, Joel, for people who don't know, former basketball player, CEO, pro level training, motivational speaker. It's just the list is like, I want to do one of these things Joel does. When you were going through this process of figuring out who you are, like when did all of this start clicking as far as the mind and the body? Because you're very successful in your teens and all this stuff. Was the mind a piece of this? And could you let us know where it started to really click on your thoughts become your reality and kind of all the jazz of the mind, let's say?
I mean, the mind was a major part of it. Even as a child, I had huge imagination as a child. I'll be honest, I still have maybe a larger imagination now as an adult. And I feel like that always separates me from a lot of other people in my sector, in my industries, because I think like a child in a good way. As far as the way I dream, the way I think things up, I don't think with any limits. I don't allow for any statistics to get in my way. I don't allow for any past horrible experiences to get in my way. So I'm a very free thinker in that regard. And that started as a child and thinking of what I wanted to be one day. I wanted to be like Mike, like everybody else growing up in basketball. So I knew from day one, I wanted to be a ball player on the professional side. And I stuck with that. And I knew, even as a child, about 11 years old, I knew I wanted to have my own business one day. So for me, as I became an adult, and you asked when, I would say probably when I was in college, when I really began to dive into the psychological side of things and getting my degree in psychology. It taught me something amazing that I do my best to teach others now from the stage, is I take everything one thing at a time, right? So for me, you just mentioned that I have all these different things that I do and that I've done. You would like to do one of them. For me, I only do one thing at a time. You know, so you may run off 6 or 7 things that I do. I can only do one when I do that thing. So I have the ability, thank God, to separate everything that I do and not have them connect in my mind to where it overwhelms me. I know I have 7 things coming up, but I'm only thinking about one, the next thing. That's all that matters to me. So that's when it started to really click for me in college. I never forget, it was one of the sports psychology courses that I took, and it helped me a whole lot on the court. But I began going to office hours, asking that professor, like, man, how does this stuff really work? Like, I know what you told the class. You know, you're supposed to, you give us the bare bones of like, tell me a little bit more. And once we dove in, his name was Mr. Bizdell, and he just walked me through some exercises. Hey, man, meditate, try this. You know, he gave me the behind the scenes personal stuff of the teachings that he was telling the 32 of us in class. Game changer, man. And it came from me asking questions, and I started to figure out how I can have multiple lives, but to not be overwhelmed by it.
No, man, that's beautiful. And I think the childhood, the way of thinking the world like a child, it seems to me that the most successful people kind of work that way, because you have to not live in the boundaries that society gives you. Like for me, being the Italian kid from Brooklyn, it was like, make a lot of money, get married, do this. And I did that, but at 27, I go, this doesn't feel, I feel like there's something more. And from you growing up, I know you went through some shit. What was the society in Philly like? What was your life supposed to be, and what did you do in the early days, even before college, and how did you end up kind of getting to another level in college?
Well, I mean, what I went through early on helped me get to another level, getting into college, getting beyond that into professional side of basketball, and just in the industry that I'm in right now, the industries that I'm in right now. But I mean, Philly, it wasn't ideal. It's unfortunately, I was just talking to somebody this morning, and they say they found out I was from Philly. They said, oh man, we hate to hear what's going on with all the crime there. And that was my entire life growing up. I grew up in an abandoned house in North Philly. You know, literally you go in our house, and not on the first floor, but some of our rooms still had graffiti on the walls from when it was, you know, abandoned before we were able to go in there. And, you know, my sister's room, just to the time we moved out, her room had graffiti all over the walls. I don't know what was going on before we moved in, but I mean, this was during the crack era of the late 80s and the early 90s. So I mean, I would walk up and down the street and see the crack vials on the street all the time. And just, you know, that was the environment. The home next door to us was still abandoned. It was on fire before that point. It was a homeless guy that lived next to us the entire time. that was the environment. Holes in our staircase, wearing donated clothes from the church, hearing shootings while we're going to sleep at night and people arguing outside and up the street. When I was 6, I was 10 feet away from a shooting, and nobody else was there outside the kid that got shot. So having to experience something traumatic like that at 6 years old, thinking I'm going to get shot in the back as I, try my best to get away, it builds something in you to where anything else that happens in life, even the difficult things, you're happy about. It sounds crazy because it's like, well, at least it wasn't that. I had some things early in life that I can refer back to, and that was a powerful thing for me because if I happen to lose a game in sports or if I happen to get a bad grade in school, I didn't get anxiety over stuff like that. I wasn't tripping over that because I'm like, I got, I almost got shot, and I had a knife pulled out on me at 9 years old and called the N-word for the first time, unfortunately. It's like, because I was in the wrong neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So it's like going through things like that early in life, man. And then years later, losing one of my older brothers tragically as a teenager. I'm like, I don't sweat too much nowadays, man. So for me, I had a bone of perseverance that was built in me. I got a callous toward these difficult things that I may experience now as an adult. I'm like, you know what? Hey, number one, I'm still here to complain about it. So I'm not going to complain too much. I'm going to just find a way to make an adjustment and keep this thing moving.
Yeah. And it sounds like you dealt with like real world problems, like life or death. And that's why, it sounds like perseverance, obviously, but you kept that perspective throughout your life and gratitude, right? Because
absolutely,
you could forget quickly, where you've been and how far you kind of get. Mm-hmm. And now as a kid, were your parents around?
Yeah, fortunately. So, both of my parents, were in my life. I know how much of a rarity, which, is unfortunate that is. I had both of my parents, my entire family. I'm the youngest of 6. So, it was 4 kids, 2 parents, all in the same house. We needed each other, man. Growing up in that environment, we needed as much love at home as possible. So fortunately, I had it. And when things were difficult, my parents made sure they shielded the difficulty as much as they could, so they didn't hit us and affect us that hard. I mean, we've had moments to where they just couldn't help it. Like it got around their shield, and it's, it still got us in the community, still got us in the environment. If we ran out of, kerosene in some of the heaters in the house, then we all had to sleep in their bed, all 6 of us, because, we had enough for one kerosene heater in their room, stuff like this. I mean, like, as much as they did their best to shield us from the difficulties of what we're going through, fortunately, I had my parents to still, do what they could, and they were there, and they still are.
No, man, that's beautiful. And shout out to the parents. Like, there's something about being in a bad situation when you have that connection to the family. There's something deeper. And I think as a confidence thing, when I'm speaking to guys who are missing that piece of father or mother, I told you a little bit about my shit. It's just, there's something missing. And I think it comes back to your subconscious thoughts in a way. And I know I've heard you talk about the power of your thoughts.
Absolutely.
What message were you repeating to yourself as a kid that you were not aware of until you got into psychology and all this? And how is that message that you repeat to yourself now changed?
Well, again, bringing up my parents again, I literally have to say this. They told me that I was not allowed to say can't. It wasn't allowed in our house. And it wasn't some corny cliche, oh, no, don't say can't. No, it was like, you better not say can't. And it was to the point to where when I was 8 or 9, I think I was 8 years old, I got put on punishment for it. And I didn't eat one night because of it. Like I never forget, I was doing some math homework, man. And Scott, I promise you, I said, I can't do this. I didn't like math. And my mom was in the kitchen. She said, hey, don't say that. So I'm like, all right, okay, whatever. And then I just, I kept working, got upset and yelled it out. Oh, I can't do this. My dad overheard it. So, that was the, don't let him hear it, put it like that. And so I'll fast forward and say, he went out and got us some fast food that night. If we had fast food in the house, it was a treat, like for dinner. Like if we went, got something called Checkers, which was in Philly back in the day. It's still here too. But he went and got Checkers for everybody in the house. And, bought the food in, put it on the dining room table. Everybody went going into the bags to get their stuff. And he didn't get anything from me. And so he said, no, but you sitting at this table. I started going to my room, said, no, get back here and sit down at the table. had to watch everybody eat, and I didn't eat that night. He said he didn't say much beyond it. I just had to watch. I felt like the family dog just watching everybody eat, man. I'm 8 years old, the youngest out of everybody. I'm sitting there like tearing up, like, man, I don't have no food, all because I said I can't. I never said that again in my life. So if you ask me what was that thing that I always said to myself, it's like, I can do this. So if it was something that I had to tell myself even before I pursued a certain thing, and the feat and the dream seemed real huge, I'm like, I can do it. You know, it's no other way. Or if I'm in the midst of a certain thing to where I'm really struggling, I'm like, no, I can do this. So no matter what, I always told myself, dude, you can do this. Just don't give yourself any other option. You know, it's a method I told myself now I came up with called a now method, no other way. I'm like, no, it's you can do this. Don't give yourself any other option. Keep moving forward. So it's that I can attitude, man. I've always, you know, kind of had in me.
Yeah, dude, and I love that. I think that's such a crucial. That probably that sounds like that's the little trick that got you everywhere with this belief.
Big time,
because,
man.
Dude, that's the half of the issue for me is doing something. The other half is belief in yourself. And I feel like my generation, at least, you guys grew up a little tougher. It's that belief, and I think there's a direct correlation between your mind and that belief system and how you kind of operate. How do you help people, or how do you suggest others to persevere to through discomfort or through a setback or through something like that? Has there been a sort of method that you've used to get yourself through it?
Absolutely. This is a major method I came up with, and I'll tap into in a second. But what people need to realize is that there's so much more beyond your emotions, and that's where we don't allow ourselves to tap into that more, because our emotions tend to cloud the situation right in front of us, to where you don't see the situation for truly what it is, because we're so emotional. We're not feeling so much to where we start pitying ourselves, we start getting mad at everyone else, and we don't look at ourselves in the right way. We don't hold ourselves accountable in the right way in that moment, because we're so emotional. And if we just allow our minds to really take over in the proper way, and now allow our emotions to take over and our feelings, then we can really tap into some amazing sides of ourselves. We'll have amazing responses and less unfavorable reactions to what we go through. So for me, I train people now, and I talk to them from the stage. I actually just wrote a book about this exact method called filtering.
Yep.
And, you know, filtering for me it's just literally a way that you lean into your situation. Whatever you're going through, you really lean into it, you question it, but without emotion. You can't say, why is this happening? That's not the right way to question anything. You know, that's pity. You put yourself in that area, you're gonna be in a pit, and it's just not, you're gonna be hard to get out of that situation. You gotta really question it with calmness, with poise. Like, all right, why is this actually here? Why is this going on? What benefits can I get from this situation that I'm going through right now? And I'm talking about really try to lean into it fully like that, so that you get into this brainstorming phase. The moment you get into that brainstorming phase, you're gonna start to gain more perspective, you know, objective viewpoints and vantage points. You're gonna really see things from multiple angles and not just your own. And when you objectively see things that way, you're less emotional. You start having empathy towards yourself and others, but in a proper way. And again, not sympathy, because that's when you start pitying yourself. So for me, I tell people, look, filter the situation, really lean into it, and extract exactly what you need to get from that situation. And then once you got what it came to give you, that's when you move forward and allow that thing to actually propel you forward even more.
That is a very Buddhist mindset, Joel. And I love that, because that's when I started realizing this, I think most of us just live kind of unconsciously that your emotions are you. It's not the truth. I mean, you could live it that way. But when you start realizing, like for me, it was always an anger thing. And that's conditioned from the childhood, all that stuff. When you start realizing, wow, if you just sit, for me, it was meditation got me through it. Now I'm up 4 a.m. every day. I got to do that hour just to sit. And exactly how you were saying, it's like, I feel like I go from being Jared Goff, a shitty QB, to like Tom Brady. I could see everything. And
Right.
Not only does it help you see everything, it like gives it a way to see it. I look at the world from more of a psychological view, right? But maybe somebody looks at it from an economic view, maybe looks at my physical view, and you get to see these different levels of life that, like, wow, it gives for me like acceptance in a way of the world. And instead of forcing things, giving you the opportunity to like see the path through. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, I'm fully on that same page, man. And that's just, you have, I dare say you have to have that mentality.
You have to, man.
You have to have, if you want to persevere, you want to persist, you want to get over things, if you just want to be successful with whatever you're going through, to just get beyond, there's so many struggles, you have to have that vision inside of you, man, to where you just see things in a different way.
Yeah. And I'm lucky enough in the day job and in the podcast to talk to successful people. It seems that they either had that just innately, or you're a little behind, like a guy like me who had to learn it. And I think you appreciate that more. And was this more natural for you? Or was this something that you picked up through the psychology in college and through life?
It was a little bit, I wouldn't even call it natural. It took practice. It took practice for me. Again, good thing is I had a foundation of belief within myself. So that helped a whole lot.
Yeah, sure.
Because again, you mentioned earlier, that's something to where people struggle with. And obviously, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm not a superhuman. I've had struggles with belief in myself. I've had insecurities. I have insecurities. The thing is, I just don't mind my insecurities now. That's the difference between me now and the old me. I minded my insecurities. I didn't talk about my insecurities. You know, I was ashamed of my insecurities. I was embarrassed about my insecurities. Now I just realize every insecurity is a foundation of a future improvement for myself. So I'm like, okay, all right, I have insecurity. All right, Joe, now how can you improve it? You know, that's the area now you're about to fortify another area in your armor. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to just say I enjoy having insecurities. I don't. However, I don't mind them to where they hold me back mentally or emotionally to where I don't mind expressing them. I'm more transparent now. If I have insecurity and anxiety, because I now know that I'm not the only one that goes through those things. You know, before as an athlete, you know, you're looked at in a certain way and you start walking in that aura and it's like, nah, you know, I'm not going through anything wrong. I'm cool. I'm all right. Cool. But, you know, now I'm like, no, if I'm not okay, I'll let it be known. No, I'm not, but I'm working on some things. And transparency for me has been, that got me over the hump of life.
That's the next level. Yeah. So we got belief, like that's first. We got the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next step, I'll put failure with insecure because I feel like those are the negative things, let's say.
Yeah.
At least that's something I have an issue with, is like, it's when things are going good, you know, momentum just gets you. I'm the shit. The second you get a little setback or a little insecurity, you could drag that on. Now, how has your relationship to failures, insecurities changed? Because even me, I've been trying to like, I feel like there's a lesson in my weaknesses, or there's a lesson in the failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, I could say it as much as I want. Maybe I don't feel it right now, but
that's,
I know analytically that's the way to go. Is that something you've kind of crafted in your soul, and how has that relationship looked?
I mean, I have a great relationship with failure now. You know what I mean? It
Son of a bitch.
Always the best. I don't, again, I seek it many times. Now, I was trained even on the physical side to where I relate so many things I picked up in sports now to the mental side of life, you know, just outside of sports, to where I was trained to go to a failure with so many different exercises, so that my coaches, there was one year in particular, we won a national championship this year. That coach did everything to failure. He had this whole mentality of one more. And I hated it at first. I'm not going to lie to you. I was the captain of this team, but he would say, all right, let's do 10 reps of this. I bang out the 10, one more. Bang out 11, one more. All of a sudden I do 21, right? And I didn't realize until, you know, shortly after, I soon realized what the case was. But he said, all right, look, I may put 10 in front of you. I may tell you 15, but if you're capable of 23, that's what you're going to do. You know, so for me, he took me to a failure. But every time I failed, I was better the next set. You know, like the next day, the next time we did that exercise, I was able to do 24, as opposed to 23. So I began seeking failure. You know, within my workouts, I seek failure in my business now. When it comes to pursuing something that's super big, I'm like, look, let's go for it. If I fall, cool. And I realize now that, you know, failure is a midpoint. It's not an endpoint. It's a part of the process. So if I'm going to pursue anything, if I don't have any type of failure at all, ever, I'm not going my hardest. I'm playing safe at that point, man. And I tell people now, like, I don't care about failing. I don't care about taking a loss. Now I win some and I learn some. I'm undefeated. I don't lose anymore. You know, because it's all a learning experience.
Dude, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I get this question from kids all the time. It's like, Scott, I want to do whatever whatever the crazy goal is. It's like, how do I take massive action? I go, okay, we start talking about it. And what's behind it? Why won't you? It's always the fear of it. And I guess it's the feeling of whatever that pain may be. Like, how has that relationship been on like a primal level for you? Like when you feel that, I don't know, that's just that fear. Like, what do you do?
That fear, you know, I'll be honest. I make sure now, this is me now, you know, as far as recent years, you know, last 5 to 8 years. When I feel that fear, I know it sounds corny, man, but I know I'm alive. I know it's something worth pursuing. If it's something that I fear, right? Something that I'm hesitant about, I know now, just based off the pattern of my life personally, I can't speak for everybody, but based off the pattern of life I've witnessed is if I'm fearing it, if I'm hesitating about it, it must be something in that thing that will cause me to grow, period. If I don't feel anything about it, then I can safely go through it. Nothing's probably going to challenge me, and I'm probably not going to grow on the other side of that thing. But if I'm feeling some type of like, I don't know if I'm able, or, oh, I'm doing it because I know on the other side of it, I'm gonna be better. So I don't mind the fear. If I feel fear, I'm like, oh, there we go. That's the signal.
That's the answer.
And again, I'm a national director for Nike Sports Camp, so I see these 3 words all the time on everything. Just do it. That's how I live, man.
Man, that is fucking awesome. Now with the there's belief, right? But then there's also this other side of it, hard work. And I think some people are scared to like empty the canister because they like, well, what if I empty it and I fail? And it's like, that's the point. That's what you're talking about.
Man.
Why it's just clicking with me.
Exactly.
That's something I've always made it like, oh, I'm fucking, everything's easy, this and that. But when you know, you never want to be enough, but your relationship with failure is such a beautiful thing because it's like, it's just a part of this process. Now, moving this over to basketball, I got to talk to you a little bit about fucking basketball. I got a pro basketball. How was it? Like, dude, that's the highest level of what you ever did. Like, how was that struggle going from Siena, right?
Yeah.
You're at Siena to the NBA. How was that whole process?
Well, for me, man, I went, started off at Siena. It was a crazy journey, man.
Because you went overseas.
I went over to Europe, so I didn't get drafted into the NBA. So for me, I took the road, I can't call it less traveled. The road less traveled is the NBA. The road often traveled nowadays is more so all the other routes. So that's the road that I took, and not by my decision. I wanted to be drafted into the NBA, but I had various things that happened along the way that didn't allow that to happen. And I'm thankful. I thank God, seriously, I didn't start doubting myself. Not once did I doubt myself and say, oh, well, I must not be good enough. No, I worked out with NBA guys throughout college. I knew what it was about. I knew that I was on the level to handle myself in the different venues. Didn't have the again, so much of the things may be political or whatever the case is, know the right person. And, for me, I moved around quite a bit in college, and I thank God for every move, man, because I started off at Siena, like you mentioned, starting off at Division I, and I tore my hamstring my freshman year, so I couldn't even play. And, and I was the #1 recruit there, a whole lot of expectations from myself and from others. Couldn't play. The next year, the coach recruited over me because he was upset that I didn't play. And I'm like, dude, this is pretty crazy. So I transferred. NCAA said, well, look, you can't go to another Division I because then you're going to have to sit out. You can go transfer, but you're gonna have to sit out. I said, well, I just sat out due to injury. I don't want to do that again. They said, well, we have something called a 4-2-4 transfer. You can go from this 4-year school, but into a 2-year school, like a junior college, but you can play. They said, if you're willing to do that for the next 2 years, go for it. I said, sign me up. I just want to play basketball. So I went into junior college in a school down in Texas, Paris, Texas. Never even heard of this place before. Won a national championship. Like I went down there and it was an Eiffel Tower with a cowboy hat on top of it. It was crazy, backcountry, and it was an amazing move. Won a national championship, and just to be closer to home, I came back, had to still do another year of junior college. Went to school in Maryland and won another national championship. And after that, I was able to get back to Division I for my 2 final years at Rider University, which is where I graduated from, and won another conference championship there. So it's like, for me, with all the movement, it's like, bet I did the right thing. I got 3 championships, 2 national, 1 league championship in college for believing in myself, man. And it wasn't about the hardships. It was about me succeeding beyond those things.
Dude, oh my! Now getting to the NBA, right? what was the step right before? Like, how? Because I feel like you're just inching your way there. And this fucking checkers, your parents not giving you checkers. That's just
right.
I wish my mom would give me fucking McDonald's or something.
Right.
Like, how was that feeling of when, I guess, you get a call or they sign? Like,
well,
what was that whole thing like?
It was a process. So for me, not being drafted, I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? Where do I go? And I had a number of friends that already played professionally in Europe and South America. So again, I would work out with these guys and different NBA guys. Since my sophomore year of college, I was working out with NBA players and just different friends I had on the pro circuit. So they began telling me, look, man, try to go over here, get an agent, try to go over there, do what you got to do. There's always still a way to get back and potentially make an NBA roster. So, throughout the process, I started off by playing pro ball in Europe by going to Ireland and starting off over there, and then coming back during the summertime, working out with NBA guys. And I got a contract with the NBA Development League. And, I was like one of 4 players picked from their international workout. And, just going through processes like that, which is the undocumented stuff that people don't see in the limelight, man. All these workouts you go to for all these different teams and clubs and things around the world, just to make one roster. You may work out for 20 plus teams just to make one roster, but it's worth it, man, just to get the experience. And that was the route for me. And just getting the NBA Development League contract, which I ended up turning down and went back over to Europe, just to pursue, higher paid contracts and stuff like that. It was a great time, man. You're the man, you're LeBron, you're Kobe over there. So it was a pretty dope experience, man.
Yeah. How was the Irish league trash? Be honest.
It wasn't that good to me. It wasn't that good to me. I mean, it was so legacy too. And I say that as far as like, they really respected the older players and gave them so many, so much clout. I'll say that around the league, to where, I'm like, look, they shouldn't even be playing in this league anymore. But they had, they got the veteran salary. They had it's a whole lot of vet status over there, but it initiated me into the pro game. So, I'm grateful forever to Ireland for that. And the people loved me there. So that was a pretty dope experience. I literally was walking up and down the block, and I gotta tell you this one story, man.
Yeah, bro, please.
So you've seen the movie Rocky, right?
Yeah, of
course.
All
right. So obviously, Rocky, the whole thing takes place in Philly, and a lot of the kids there knew I was from Philadelphia in the States. That's how I always say, So I'm walking up the street, I'm carrying some grocery bags, going back to my place. They said, oh, you're the new basketball player, you're the American, right? I said, yeah. So I said, where are you from in America? I said, I'm from Philadelphia. There was about 8 of them. They all started by saying, oh, like Rocky, right? Like Rocky Balboa, oh. So here's the funniest thing, man. They said, have you ever met Rocky before? They thought he was a real
guy
person. I said, I didn't want to break their heart, man. These were like, 10 and 11-year-olds. And I said, no, I never met him before. They didn't say Sylvester Stallone. They said Rocky. They thought he was, a real player. And I'm a real fighter. So it was that environment though, man. Like the kids loved me, which I thought was really cool, man. And it made me think less about the fact that I wasn't in the NBA. That wasn't even on my mind. That was just me focused on where I was and just doing my best to kill it.
And keeping that perspective. Yeah, Joe, I'm not gonna lie. I got really into basketball this year, and I was struggling after basketball endings. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not watching baseball. And I've been trying to watch this FIBA Basketball World Cup, and it is some rough basketball, bro. These guys are scoring. Both teams are scoring like 25 points in the court. I'm like, guys, what are we doing? Like, put me out. I was thinking about switching nationality to Rwanda,
Dude.
And I just be on the team. They scored 7 points in the quarter right before the start. I was like, guys, what are we doing?
It's different. It's a different brand of basketball, man. The fouls are harder, in different ways, especially in the NBA. Now, the NBA is called such a soft level of basketball that's being played in the NBA now. Not even by the players' fault, it's the referees, I feel like, just controlling the game. But yeah, Europe, man, it's different. I'm talking about you can walk out of the game with a gash on you.
Yeah, dude, that's why I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't even know why I'm watching it, but I need something. I can't be doing no baseball. And I feel like I guess this is the way the Europeans look at us about soccer, because I'm like, I love soccer too, and I'm like, all right, it's all fair. Like, we're all trying to catch up. Like, from your perspective, because I was watching basketball heavy 10 years ago and I stopped, and I started watching the heavy this year. Ja's my boy, I love Ja. I'm a Grizzlies guy now. I'm all in, but this game is like a different thing. Like, when you were playing, you were getting fouled, I'm assuming like this is just points. I don't know if I think maybe it's a money thing because I feel like in every sport you're just seeing the points just get scored. Like how has the game changed from your perspective?
I mean, the game, again, if we want to talk NBA,
NBA.
It's so different, man. I mean, the fouls were allowed more. You were allowed to be physical. You were allowed to talk trash. You were allowed to express yourself and be upset at the referee without getting a tech or being thrown out of a game. You can't even throw your hands up nowadays without getting a tech. And there's so many levels of flagrant fouls and things. I get that they're trying to protect the player, but man, it's just making the game soft. It makes, look, I don't hate to put this out there. I'm gonna just say it. I hardly watch the NBA season. When the playoffs come around and when the playoff race happens just before the playoffs, I'm tuning into every game. But the bulk of the season, I may watch, maybe 10 games, just to watch the game of basketball because I love it. You know what I mean? I watch more college basketball during that time than I do NBA. So I get my fix of basketball on TV. I watch the college games because the intensity there is there. It's not as many calls of fouls and things like that. But, again, I love the NBA, but it's just called, I feel like the whistle blows a little too often for my liking nowadays.
And from your perspective, because it looks like these guys, the shooting has reached another level. Would you agree with that? That the skill has got, because watching Steph Curry could do like Steph or any of these guys, it's like another.
It's different.
And what do you think? Man. What do you think is going on? You think we're just kind of honing in after 60, 70 years on the skill of shooting, and it's just becoming, because it's unbelievable. I was like blown away when I started watching. I was like, I can't believe how good these guys are.
Yeah, man. All right, so let's put it into true perspective. So I don't remember the exact year, but the 3-point line wasn't really put into play until the 80s, like the early 80s, late 70s, I believe. So, and even when it was first incorporated into the NBA game, it probably took a good 15 years before people really said, oh, this 3-point thing can do something. Now, obviously, like Larry Bird was doing something with it early, you know what I mean? Which is why he's one of the godfathers of the three. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't until the 90s came about to where we really started having shooters. You know what I mean? Like we don't talk a whole lot about a whole lot of shooters from the 80s to 70s because they weren't shooting 3-point shots. So the game now, the fact that we realize we can really see the value of getting 3 versus 2 points, you have guys really leaning into that and becoming specialists. You got your Steph Curry Steph is a special breed, man. He's a specialist in a whole lot of regard. He's not just a shooter. A lot of guys who we see that can shoot aren't able to dribble. Steph, he has both. You have your Stephs, you have your Kyries and guys like that. But a lot of players are trained now versus having that innate ability, like which was back in the day. Obviously, they trained as well, but there was some natural freaks in nature back then to where it's just you win by brute force. And that's when the game was allowed to be more force, but now it's hard to win by brute force because the way the game is called. So you have to win by straight up pure skill.
Yeah, it seems like a Moneyball type thing where it's like, okay, why would we not shoot the 2 when I can get 1.5% of the
right.
point? And now you have a kid who's just specializing this from 3 years old. They're going to your training camps, like one of these training camps. That's another level. So I think I have the answer here. You're not the GOAT for you. Who would it be? Greatest of all time? I think.
I don't know if you can see my shirt.
Yeah, that's what I didn't see. That's what I figured. I
23. So it's literally a GOAT right here, and it has 2-3 on the shirt. So if that answers it for you,
that is that
black shirt.
Now you think LeBron just wouldn't have been able to take the physicality in the 90s, or what do you think?
All right, so we have a couple players that plays today that, again, I can't say this for every player, that can have played in other eras of the game. LeBron could have played in another era. Now he's adjusted and adapted to the way the game is called now. So he's soft in some of his, complaints to the ref. But I can't really call him soft for it because, he's just trying to capitalize on today's game. I won't call him soft for it. But he could have played in, let's say, the early 90s. Would he have been as successful? He would have been successful, no doubt about it. He would still be a top, 7 player of all time. But he has been able to excel even further because the game isn't as rough and tough as it used to be. I'm talking about playing against the Pistons. You're getting knocked down. You're not going to the free throw line. So you're not going to be able to keep going downhill and take advantage of that because you're going to have a Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, these guys, the Larry Johnson from the Knicks in the 90s, and Charles Oakley. That's going to knock you down, and it's going to be okay. So, he's been able to capitalize a lot on the new era of the game with his toughness because this dude is tough. I mean, you can't be around this long and not have an amazing level of toughness and skill. But for me, I consider that when in the GOAT talk. Like I say Jordan because the guy played during a transition of an era and during a tough era. So from the 80s where everything was legal, you can literally throw somebody down and all they would do is say, hey, don't do that again. And it wasn't even a foul call. I don't know the statistics, but it wasn't a whole lot of players fouling out of games back then because fouls weren't being called. So he came through that and he still killed. So I'm like, I consider that when it comes to the GOAT talk. And plus beyond that, winning and never losing in the finals, that's a huge thing. That just means when you make it to that level, we can count on you to always win. That's just what he pulled off every time he made it to the final. So I give MJ the GOAT. I came up also during that era. So it's an aura about MJ to me.
No, dude, I'm with you. Just even there's something I think physically, if you're getting knocked down, would LeBron be able to do this for 20 years? And then psychologically, just being able, once you take those 2 steps, those guys give up and just let you just jam it now. It's like, you would have done that once. Exactly. Oakley would have put you down the second. Like you would have been like, no, that's not happening. I think that is a little bit. Yeah, you're right. It's a little soft. I could say it. You're a former pro. I don't want you to get in trouble. I'll say it a little.
I mean, like I said, man, it is though. It is. It's a softer game nowadays, man. Period. It just look. I'll tell you, players in the NBA know it. They know. I mean, they don't even like it because again, it stops the game too often. It breaks the rhythm of the play. Mm-hmm. The referees begin to control the game. No one wants that. From the fan side, from the player side, we want to be able to control the game, the outcome of the game, as opposed to the whistle, and as opposed to a teleprompter, not a teleprompter, but a screen that's reviewing a play. Like, look, if you ain't catch it live, we just keep it moving. Yeah. If you didn't catch it, ref, we get it. Move on and catch the next one. But we don't need you stopping this thing 6 times in the last 2 minutes of the game to review everything. It's just I'm not a fan of it at all, man. But like I said, a guy like a LeBron, a dude, you said it perfectly. Would he have lasted this long in a game playing in a different era? No.
Yeah, like I see Ja. I love Ja, but this playoff just falling too much. He banged up. A little skinny. Maybe I'd put on some muscle, but still, it's like, it's a different thing when you're a rookie compared to.
Yeah, right. I mean, just look at a Derrick Rose, man. I mean, that's where it's. I look at guys like Derrick Rose. And I'm like, I see a Ja Morant who's like a next coming type of guy like a Derrick Rose. Who was beginning to be in the MVP talks, last year as far as Ja Morant. And we saw Derrick win it in 2010. I'm like, Ja's on that same tip to where he's about to win this thing in a year or two. But I want him to be safe about it because he's so amazing.
Fearless. He's too fearless,
man. Yeah. Right. And it's like he doesn't have a whole lot of body on him. So it's like you gotta be careful with that. And you're going to get some big guys. So but again, I would hate to ever slow that down. If you're capable, hey man, go for it. But you got to be strategic with in some ways, it's a tough call because he's such an impulsive player.
What did prime Joel Green look like? What kind of player were you?
I was prime me. It's funny. Getting on myself, people will always say I look like Scottie Pippen growing up, right? So, I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. It's the people who told me that I started wearing number 33 like Scottie. And we were the same height, I'm 6'8", right? And I ended up catching up to his same height roughly. I think 6'7", 6'8". And I began to copy a lot of his game. We had similar build. I was always a thin guy, super long arms. So I just began working on mid-range a lot. So I began watching guys. One of my favorite players to watch coming up outside of Jordan was Scottie Pippen and Grant Hill in the 90s. And just watching those players, I developed a great mid-range game. So prime me with
the 33, bro. 33's all around.
33's all look exactly. You got it.
That was me. My number's 33 too. So you're the same exact.
There we go. There we go. Exactly.
That's so funny.
So I mean, those are my guys, the small forwards. I end up being a small forward on the pro side, a little bit of shooting guard. But I love the small forward position because then I can be in, out, wherever I wanted to be on the court. But yeah, mid-range all day for me, man. I'll knock the three down, but I love 1 or 2 dribbles into the paint. It's unguarded. I can raise up over people and shoot.
I love that, dude.
I'll catch some bodies too, though. You know, if you jump with me, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, you ain't playing no games. I'm with you.
At all.
Now the transition. Now, how difficult of a decision was it to step away from basketball? How did you pivot into pro level training? Like, what did this all look like? Because it seems like you've always been a person that wants to help others. Like, what did this whole process look like?
It was tough. Look, I went through depression. I'm not going to dare make it sound sweet. No, it wasn't sweet at all. It was, I had anxiety. I dare say for the first time in my life, I had to go to the doctors because I'm like, what's this feeling that I'm feeling right now? That just doesn't feel good. And the doctor's like, dude, you have anxiety. That's what you're going through. I thought I was developing something, you know, and it was just the transition. I was so used to moving around, going to different countries, taking flights. I was sitting still, and it didn't feel natural for me. It didn't feel good. And just also trying to build up a company at the same time, not having the revenue from a pro career, things like that. It was like, it was a challenge for me. And fortunately, I just kept going. I just kept moving forward and said, you know what, look, you made this decision, stick with it and kill it. I still had my agent, you know, calling me and say, hey, look, I had this deal come through. You down? You want to take it? I'm like, nah, give me some time, you know. And once I began to make some great partnerships and connections in business and just started and see how my clients responded to me, I'm like, oh, this feels good. And that was my thing. I mean, you say, you know, I always want to help people. Once I started to be fulfilled from what I saw, what I was doing for other people and how it affected them, I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it at a high level. So I just began looking for high level partnerships. And that's why I tell people in business all the time, you know, anywhere I'm speaking, especially if it's to entrepreneurs, I'm like, if you want to go up to a high level, please do some research and find out who currently is at the highest level in your business, in your industry. And if you can't connect with them, then go down the list, but start from the top and try to connect with them. If not them, then them, then them. All right, you got them. I guarantee you, they're gonna still take you up to another level. So that's what I began doing. And, you know, got connected with Nike sports camps, US sports camps, and we just had amazing synergy, and they helped my business to grow all around the country, man. Now my company, which is Pro Level Training that I started, we're in close to 20 states and, you know, about 40 cities around the country and in Canada as well. So it was all about me just saying, okay, it was tough transitioning, but the fact that I stuck with it and started looking for support and help from others who were 10 times better than me, that's what did it for me.
Man, and there's something about like when you're doing shit for yourself, you feel good. But then when you start, like for me, when I start realizing the value you get, like when you get an email from a kid, 18 in fucking Norway, needs help with his mind, and like you're actually changing, you're changing like the way society functions in a little bit of a way. Maybe you're doing a little more than me, but dropping a rock in the pond. Like I think that's what all of us need at this point through the anxiety of the world going on, like the uneasiness. You know, I'm in Manhattan 4 times a week, and it's like, everything is looking a little dark here. And I think what you're doing is amazing. I think we're all in this together in a way. It's like we're all raising consciousness, like slowly but steadily. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I appreciate that for sure, man. That's what it's about. It's like, look, if I can, like you said, drop a rock in the pond, man, I'm cool with that. You know, I know I helped. I know I did my part. And what more can you do, really? I mean, I've had to tell myself that, man. Look, if I'm only affected one person, but I spoke to 1,500 one talk, I'm cool. I'm glad somebody heard me. And I'll get that on Instagram. If I leave a talk or something like that, if I do something virtually, and all of a sudden I'll get, you know, some DMs and things like that, I love it, man, because I'm glad that someone really received, you know, what I said. And I feel like, okay, I'm doing my part.
Exactly. Dude, Joel, this was fucking awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, check out Joel's book below. Check out everything. Filtering the way to extract strength from the struggle. Man, I just wish my mom didn't give me that fast food. That's what keeps me sticking, dude. Seriously, Joel, thank you so much, man.
Scott, thanks for having me on, man. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. On YouTube, if you're watching, subscribe. If you're listening, thank you guys so much for the support, for just keeping us growing. As always, stay safe, stay positive, stay blessed. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.